Crazy and deep secret of a widow is about to be revealed. Mama Talu was once a joyful woman, living with her loving husband and their young son, Talu. Their home was filled with laughter, warmth, and the happiness that came from being a family. But that happiness was shattered when her husband suddenly passed away. The loss was devastating, leaving Mama Talu with nothing but grief and her young son Talu to care for. And in the weeks that followed her husband's death, Mama Talu struggled to find her way. The house felt emptier than ever, and she became consumed by loneliness. No matter how much she tried to care for Talu, she could not escape the ache in her heart. The absence of her husband felt unbearable. Talu, growing into a young man, noticed the change in his mother. He knew she was sad, but didn't understand the depth of her pain. As Mama Tolu's loneliness grew, it took a toll on her mental state. She began to lean on Talu in ways no mother should. It started with small gestures, seeking comfort in her son's presence. But it slowly escalated. One day, in a moment of weakness and confusion, Mama Talu made a terrible decision. She slept with her son. It was a choice that she would regret for the rest of her life, but in that moment, her grief clouded her judgment. A month later, Mama Talu discovered that she was pregnant. The news hit her like a storm, and she was paralyzed with guilt. She knew the truth, that she had done something horribly wrong, but she couldn't turn back. Desperate, she pleaded with Talu to let her terminate the pregnancy, but Talu, terrified and unable to accept what had happened, begged her to end it. Mama Talu, however, refused. She couldn't bring herself to destroy the life that had been created. Unable to bear the shame and confusion, Talu ran away. He left the house and the town, fleeing from the terrible truth. He couldn't stay in a place where the weight of his actions and his mother's secret would haunt him forever. For 2 long years, he lived far away, avoiding the home he once knew, hoping to forget the life he had left behind. As for Mama Talu, she was left to deal with the consequences of her choices. She carried the pregnancy to term, and 9 months later, she gave birth to a baby girl, whom she named Joyce. Though Mama Talu loved her daughter, the shame of what had happened hung over her like a dark cloud. She could not bear to stay in the same town any longer, so after Joyce's birth, Mama Talu decided to relocate. She moved far away, hoping to escape her past. Mama Talu raised Joyce in a new town, keeping the secrets of her past hidden from her daughter. Joyce grew up without ever knowing the truth about her origins. She was a beautiful, kind-hearted young woman, but Mama Talu never told her the story of how she had come into the world. As Joyce grew older, she began to form her own life. And unknowingly, she met Talu, a man in his late 40s who had moved to the same town. They became friends, and over time, their friendship blossomed into love. They had no idea of the dark connection between them. Joyce was drawn to Talu, and Talu was captivated by her. The two were inseparable, and soon they were talking about marriage when they discovered Joyce was pregnant for Talu already. Joyce told Talu, "I want you to meet my mother. She's going to be so happy to meet you." Talu, nervous but excited, agreed. He had no idea that this meeting would unravel the truth about his past. When they arrived at Mama Talu's house, Talu felt an odd sense of familiarity, but he couldn't place why. Mama, what? What do you meet today? He asked when they arrived, and Mama Talu said. Joyce told Talu standing there. Joyce took Luis' son. This was the same son she had not seen in 25 long years, the same son who had run away when the truth of their past became too much to bear. Boom. Mama Talu's hands trembled as she opened the door to welcome them in. Joyce introduced Tolu as the man she loved, the one she was going to marry. Mama Tolu's world seemed to collapse in an instant. She couldn't breathe. She stared at Tolu, her mind in a whirl of disbelief. Mama, this is Tolu, the man I want to marry. Joyce beamed with excitement, unaware of the horror that was unfolding before her mother's eyes. Tolu, confused by his mother's reaction, looked at her with concern. Mama, what's wrong? He asked, his voice trembling. Mama Tolu's lips quivered as she whispered, You're my son. The words struck Tolu like a lightning bolt. His body went cold and his heart stopped. He didn't want to believe it. Joyce, standing beside him, was still oblivious to the truth, thinking her mother was just overwhelmed by the meeting. But Mama Tolu collapsed, unable to bear the shock of it all. Joyce screamed, rushing to her mother's side, but it was too late. Mama Tolu's body went limp, her heart giving out from the shock and pain of everything she had kept hidden for so many years. Tolu stood frozen, his mind racing as he tried to understand what had just happened. Joyce, still in shock, looked up at Tolu with confusion. What's going on? She asked, tears in her eyes. Tolu didn't know what to say. He couldn't find the words to explain the horror that had just unfolded. Joyce's world had just shattered, and Tolu was left standing there, grappling with the truth that had been hidden for so long. The story of Mama Tolu, and Joyce was one of secrets, guilt, and loss, a truth that, once revealed, could never be undone. Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to Echoes of Drama TV.